Hola mi gente, welcome back to Cat and Too Many Books. I'm Kat. I wanted to do a reading wrap up and stats video for this month. I had a really good reading month for me. I mean, to be perfectly frank, especially as I was on vacation and doing a bunch of other stuff. So really proud. I ate. Friends, I'm having a day, so bear with me. Here we go. So I'm going to talk stats, and then I'm going to talk about the 8 books that I read for the month of July. All right, so in my stats, let's go through some very quickly. I seem to have read the majority of my books were emotional and hopeful and adventurous, so that's kind of nice. I read 50% books with 300 pages or less, 38% with 300 to 499, and then 13% with 500 plus. Then I read all fiction this month. I really do got to get up on that, reading some nonfiction. Like, I'm not going to meet that goal for this year if I don't try at least a little bit more. But anyway, all print form. That's not true. I read print form for all the books, but I also listened to one of the books on audio as I read it in print. So, but technically, yes, I did read all the books in print as well. And then my average star rating for this month was 4.13. So I had one book 2.5, one book 3.5, two books that were 4.0, two books that were 4.5, and then two books that were 5 stars. So I had a really good reading month, actually. I'm really excited about that. And then I read pretty steadily over the month. I don't normally read. I averaged I think I averaged like a book every 4 or 5 days. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. So that's pretty good for me. I don't normally average that many books because I read 8. So that makes sense, right? Yeah, I don't normally average that many. So it was a nice month for me. I think part of it was being on vacation and being able to read some stuff. And then a couple of my books are graphic novels. So those are pretty quick reads. So anyway, those are my stats for the month. So let's get into the books that I read in July. I'm going to go by the order in which I read them and talk about them just a moment. So the first one that I finished in July was Spy versus Family. Volume number 6, story and art by Tatsuya Endo. I've been reading this manga series for a while. I'm trying to catch up on it, so I'll probably be reading some more over the next couple of months, try to catch up as much as I can. This story introduced more fully Nightfall. I have to remember. Nightfall. So it introduced Nightfall more fully. You got to know more about her. She is Twilight's spy partner who is in love with him and is trying to take his position as his wife away from Yuri. And you got a little bit more about that relationship. It was kind of hilarious. There was like a whole tennis match thing. It was really quite funny. A little bit more about getting the mission done. A little bit more about Twilight and Miura's feelings for each other. And yeah, it was really cute. I love this. This is such a cozy, adorable book series that has to do with like spies and assassins. And you wouldn't think that, but it is. Anyway, enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. Next, I read my first 5-star of the month, and that was, let me move a little bit because I'm kind of feeling like I'm not in the frame correctly. There we go. I read my first 5-star of the month, and that was Cosmic Love at the Multiverse Hair Salon by Annie Mayer. I gave this 5 stars. I loved this story so much. I don't even really know how to explain it. It just was beautifully written, and I loved all of the world building about how the multiverses sort of layered on top of each other. So in the different universes, things aren't drastically different all the time, just kind of different. And it was really interesting to have these, like, while we're going through my story, there was these little snippets in between where we saw the like other characters, we saw a couple of the main characters, other universes, but like we went through the like sort side characters that are super important too. and what their lives were in some of the other verses. This is a story of Tessa, Faye, and Meryl. They meet online, like a mistaken text, and they start sort of hitting it off. And when they try to meet, they realize that they're literally in two different timelines. Like Tessa, Faye is ahead, like months in front of where Meryl is. And so then it turns out Meryl disappeared. Nobody knows where she went. So her family kind of goes to talk to Tessa Faye because she'd been like sending her texts and stuff, and it was showing up in her phone, and they were like, what do you mean? And anyway, they come to realize that something's going on with like time, and there's like a time situation and like universes and things like that. And while they're trying to figure it out through the process of speaking to each other and other things, Tressa Faye and like Meryl fall in love. And then you realize that they may have fallen in love through time. It was just like, it's really so, I don't even know how to explain it. This was so wonderful. I love the writing. I think Annie Mera does beautiful work in like showing all different kinds of love and how important they are to us. And the spicy scenes were quite spicy and really well written. We need more queer romances. We need more sapphic romances like this, with like this kind of genre bendiness that this kind of has. I loved it. It was really, really good. I highly recommend it. Next is probably the one that surprised me the most in terms of how I felt about it, and that was Legendborn, which is the first in the Legendborn cycle. And I actually gave this 2.5 stars. I couldn't get on board with the romance and the triangle and some of the situations that Bree was put in. I mean, I just had a lot of issues with it, so I will not be continuing this series. The writing itself was really good, and I think the world building is decent, actually. This is why I gave it 2.5. Actually, the world building was decent, and the writing was good. I can't say that. It was the plot for me that just I didn't particularly like. I love the idea of using like Arthur and the Round Table, that lore, and modernizing it. And maybe it's because it's for young adult, although there's another young adult novel that I read this month that I absolutely loved. So maybe it's just, for me, it's the insta-lovey stuff, between the characters. Because, obviously there's Bree and Nick, and then there's Bree and Selwyn. And my main issue is that, like I get the Bree and Nick stuff, right? I get that whole thing, especially with if technically he's Arthur and everybody sort of loves Arthur, and she herself has some power, and you're kind of wondering who she is or what she is. So for a while you're wondering if she's like also like a Merlin type character. So that wasn't so bad. Like, whatever, I can deal with instant lovey. My problem is the Selwyn and Bree situation. Selwyn legitimately tries to kill her several times in the first 50% of the book. And then I realized, oh, we're going to try to put them together. This is going to turn into a triangle. No. She's 16. She's 16 years old. This man, who is not 16, he's got to be at least 20. And even if he's not 20, literally tried to kill her. He erased her memory without her consent. He bodily threw her around. Yeah, he said the most atrocious stuff about her. Like, he continually threatened her. I mean, it was awful. And then to have them try to like kind of excuse it, no. So I'm not, that's like my line in the sand for stuff. I can't. So it really turned me off the whole book completely. It's sad maybe, but it's true. And I know I went ahead and kind of figured it was gonna happen. I looked it up and I realized, yeah, they do something like that. And also they had like the missed opportunity. I hated the tiny bit of queer representation was sort of put into this book just to be like, oh, I do have some queer characters in here, even though you're like, okay. But like having someone have been in love with Nick before, that's where your bread and butter would be, in my personal opinion. That would be the most interesting thing. But whatever. So, yeah, 2.5. Won't be continuing on this series. I'm sorry if this is your favorite. I mean, it's really well written. I understand why people might like it. It's just not for me. All right, let's move on to the next one. And that was The Corruption of Hollis Brown by Kay Ancrum. This was 5 stars. Everything Kay Ancrum writes, I absolutely adore, because they tend to write such beautiful, absolutely moving, heart-wrenching narratives. And this story is just so heartbreaking. It's about a teenager, Hollis Brown, who his town is like dying, basically. They're like really poor, and they seem to have like a curse on them, literally, that nobody can be successful. And he collides one night after a particularly terrible thing sort of happens that he's accused of that he didn't do. He runs into Walt, and at a crossroads, without realizing, he makes a deal with Walt, and Walt possesses his body. But Walt turns out to be this ghost of a boy himself who lives with many regrets, and he's trying to better Hollis's life by kind of helping him with the things going around. So while it's but it's written in such a way that like you understand how Hollis is absolutely raging and screaming. Like, think about that scene in Get Out where like the main character's Daniel's inside like the hole and can see everything but can't do anything. Like, that's kind of how Hollis feels at the beginning. But then they sort of fall in love, the two of them, and it works. It shouldn't. It absolutely should not. But the way that Kay Ancrum wrote it, it flippin' works. And then the relationship between Hollis and his best friends, like, gorgeous. And how it's sort of resolved at the end, love it. I absolutely adored this book. And it's genuinely the first Kay Ancrum book that I've read that has this kind of fantasy aspect to it. I haven't read Wicked King or whatever. I can't remember the name of that one. She has another one that I haven't read yet that maybe has that. I don't know, but this was like her first one that I read that had like fantasy aspects to it, and it's horror. It's a horror romance, basically, really. I loved it. I genuinely loved it. It's like one of my favorite books. So maybe one of my favorite books of the year too. So yeah, so this is the first 5-star. Is it my favorite first? Second 5-star that I had this month. After that, I also read The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Philya, and I gave that 4 stars. This was a collection of short stories written by Disha Philya about women, Black women, and their relationship to God and their relationships in life. And a lot of them, quite a few of them were queer representation, and the sort of struggle that Black women have in the world, doubly so queer Black women. And it was just wonderfully done. The stories are very sort of touching, and some of them shocking, and just I really enjoyed it so much. So much. I don't want to talk about specifics of the short stories, because if you want to read it, I don't want to give anything away too much, but I highly recommend this short story collection. It was wonderful. I loved it. I know that it is a National Book Award finalist, and it deserves that because it was just incredible. And I'm hoping to buy myself a copy. I took it from the library. I'm hoping to buy myself a copy because I really enjoyed it. The next book I have is Lunar Boy by Jess Wiboyo and Sin Wiboyo, which is a graphic novel that I read, which is about a trans boy whose name is Indu. And it talks about how Indu is found on the moon by the woman that becomes his mother and adopted and brought onto a spaceship, and he grows up on the spaceship, finds himself on the spaceship, grows up on the spaceship, And then his mother and him move to New Earth to be with their new family. His mom is getting married to a friend of hers, and it's about him integrating into life on New Earth, which is very different from space, and not feeling like he belongs anywhere, and all of his dark feelings about his identity and his life and his family sort of take over, and he struggles through it, and it's about him finding his place amongst all these people. It had really fantastic queer representation, and it's done in such a way I think this is a middle school sort of novel. So I think it does a great job for really expressing a lot to that age range, like middle school, young adult, about induced feelings and all of the different queer representation in it, to sort of have anybody that's reading it understand more fully what that feels like. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was lovely, beautifully done. I gave it a 4.5. The art is beautiful. I love pastel colors, so the art's got a lot of like lovely pastel colors, and just it's soft in such a lovely sort of way, and I adored Indu. I thought he was so great. I really appreciated how the artist and the writer would scratch out, when they were talking about the past, they would scratch out or black out the characters' dead names, which I thought was kind of lovely. And I was like, that's a great way to do that. But yeah, it was so good. I love the representation. I love the representation all the way through of everything, of like Indonesian culture, of queer culture, of what it should be like in the future, of how it's still not like that, how we still are met. It doesn't matter how far in the future we are, we're still met with people who resist somebody who's different than them. Just part of human nature, or part of the society that we live in, really. It was great. Please, if you like graphic novels, please pick this up. I think it's wonderful. It's another one that I'm going to possibly buy eventually to have in my collection. So the next book that I read, and we're almost done with the books that I read, I think. So the next book that I read is I'm doing a read along with Sarah and Krista. And we're reading the Ember and the Ashes series. And I read Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, which is the second in the Ember and the Ashes series. And I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely love this. I love Elias. I love Leia. And I am absolutely thrilled that we got so much more about Helene. I love her as a character. I think she's so well done. It's so well written. I think it talks so much about Sabaa Tahir's ability to write characters that you generally care about all of the characters in this, even side characters that aren't giving as much time. When something happens, you feel for those characters, and you know there's more to what's going on, and she makes you understand them. And I didn't dislike Helene in the first one. I thought it was fair, everything she's going, but being able to be inside her head and everything that she goes through and things that she has to suffer is a lot. But I love that strength of her, but I love the strength in all of these characters and the growth that all of these characters made. I love that Leia has grown in her confidence in herself and her need to save people and to like just go for it. I love that Elias is starting to come to terms with what he's had to do in the past and how he can heal from that by now, instead of destroying people, trying to comfort and help them. And I loved having Helene start to realize that the Empire isn't everything that she thought it was, and begin to sort of form her own ideas and about what should be or shouldn't be. I thought it's great. I loved having the three of them. I really, really loved Harper, the newer character that we were introduced to here. He's amazing. The twists in this were generally like, I was gobsmacked for a couple of the different twists that the story had, and I am absolutely in love with Elias and Leia's sort of relationship and their growing kind of love for each other, and am hopeful for Harper and Celine. Okay, am I shifting a little bit? Spoiler. Nothing happens in this book, but I sort of love their interactions. So I'm like, not to be a shipper, but they're super cute. So yeah, loved it. I generally, the world building in this, the writing in this, Sabit Tahir, just, I like read this in a day and a half, I think, maybe 2 days. I like sped my way through. It's a pretty big book. Just read my way right through it. I think if I hadn't had other things to do, I probably would have read this in one day. So good. So I'm super excited to read the next book in the series because we're going to be reading the third book in August. So looking forward to it. And last but not least, I still haven't returned this to the library yet. So the last book that I read was another graphic novel. It's called I Shall Never Fall in Love by Harry Connor. It is a library read. This was really cute. I gave this 3.5 stars. It's a like retelling of Emma, Jane Austen's Emma, but with like a transgender and queer sort of lens. And so I love that about it. There's George and Charlotte and Eleanor, who are three friends who've grown up together, and I like a lot of what this book talks about. It talks about what the lives of queer people in that time would have been like, what the lives of Black people in that time would have also been like. I like how they have Eleanor, who is queer herself. I think she's bisexual. She falls more into like gay. I actually think she doesn't seem to be interested in men at all. Have her realize like her privilege in being, even though she is probably queer, and being like this rich white person who can pass, whilst Charlotte has to deal with being Black in this society and still being, I mean, they're cousins, literally have the same grandparents, and she's of course lower born not because she was, but because she's Black. And I say lower born in quotations, like, you know what I mean? And then George was born Georgina, and is really George. And so that also is something that Eleanor has to kind of goes through realization of how hard it is for George to exist in the world as well, because of what people perceive him to be that he's not. Yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I thought it was really fun, and I really liked the art, and I gave it a 3.5 because I did enjoy it a lot. It's not like super original in terms of plot, obviously, because it's a retelling of Emma, but it was like, I appreciated what Harry Connor was trying to do with bringing the lenses that he brought into it. And yeah, I had a good time reading it. So if you ever want to pick it up, I do recommend it. It's a pretty quick read. So that's it. We're at the end of the video. Thank you so much if you stayed all the way to the end. These were the 8 books that I read in July. I had a pretty good reading month. I will probably not have that good of a reading month in August. Maybe I'll be able to do the first half of the month because I won't go back to work till mid-August. So I'll have the first couple weeks of August to read as much as I can before I got headlong into teaching, and I won't have as much time to read. So I will see you guys soon in my reading possibilities for August videos. My brain's not here right now. My reading possibilities video for August. I have another video, a July reading vlog, a second July reading vlog coming. I'm working on it, editing it, so it should show up at some point in August, beginning of August. So please like, subscribe, comment. It helps the channel. Let me know if you've read any of these, how you felt about them. If you can recommend anything like these that you think I might like, that would be great. Or just leave a little icon, leave me like a little heart icon or something just to let me know that you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.